J.D. Vance was in North Carolina, where he delivered a fiery speech hammering the state's soft on crime policies that made it possible for Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska to be murdered by someone with 14 prior arrests.
She had her entire life ahead of her, and she was actually a refugee from Ukraine. So she came from a war-torn country. She sought shelter in the United States of America, and because of soft on crime policies, she was murdered here, not in the war-torn country she came from. Isn't that a disgrace? And isn't that an insult to the incredible law enforcement officers who arrested this person 14 times?
North Carolina State Senate Leader Phil Berger, who spoke at that event and met with the vice president, joins me now. State Senator, thank you so much for being here. What a message from the vice president there. Tell us more about this event and what you spoke to the VP about when you met him.
Yeah, so tragedy that someone is seemingly safer in a war zone than on public transportation in one of our major cities. And the vice president coming to North Carolina actually highlighted the concerns that we have about some of the soft on crime policies that have been implemented, many at the behest of former Governor Roy Cooper, who put forward a task force several years ago that came up with a number of recommendations that policies that would call for cashless bail, policies that would prioritize the release of violent criminals over the safety of the public. And all of that just has come to a fore at this point, and with the terrible tragedy dealing with Irina and her unfortunate death.
Yeah, you know, the random nature of what happened to Irina is one of the most concerning and disturbing things about it. How does Irina's law, which the legislator passed earlier this week, tackle that to make people in North Carolina more safe?
So what it does is it eliminates cashless bail for some of these violent offenders, or for all the violent offenders. It prioritizes the safety of the public over the release of folks who are charged with violent crimes. And the third thing that we've done is taken steps to begin the process of implementing the death penalty in North Carolina, which has actually been on the books for years, but because of soft on crime policies at the executive, the administrative, and the judicial level has not been carried out in North Carolina in well over a decade.
Well, this bill is on Governor Josh Stein's desk, who is a Democrat. Do you think he will sign it?
I have not had a conversation with him about whether he will sign it or not sign it. I know that based on votes in the North Carolina Senate by the Democrats, and actually based on the failure of a number of Democrats to actually take a vote, they scattered from the Senate when it came time to vote. Only had 8 left out of the 20 members. And so I just don't know. I hope that he will. It's the right thing for him to do. It's the right thing for the safety of the people of North Carolina. It's the right thing to show that we are serious about dealing with the crime problem.
Well, there's crime in other parts of the country, too, State Senator, as you know. What else needs to be done to make Americans safe?
Yeah, so you know, we're seeing instances of political violence that is really in some respects is perpetrated or at least advanced by some of the rhetoric that we're hearing. The vice president talked a little bit about that as well, the tragic situation in Dallas, the other situations that we've seen over the last week or so, and it's got to stop. The vice president made that point. People need to watch what they say, watch how they are saying things that demonize law enforcement. You know, law enforcement officers are there to enforce the law. They are there to protect the public. They are there to do a job, and we need to support them. We need to respect them. And we need to make sure that their ability to do that job is not impeded by rhetoric, particularly coming from the left at this time.
And from Texas to North Carolina to all parts of the country, that is a major concern. North Carolina State Senate Leader Phil Berger, we appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.